So as we go through enlisted force management, I want you to note that there is no set path for success. There are some good ideas, and that there are some things some boxes that got to be checked, all that sort of thing. But there is no one way to get to chief, or no one way to get to be a first sergeant. There are multiple paths to get there in terms of jobs and opportunities. There is also no one set status for success. So what that means is DSGs, AGRs, technicians. We don't have an A team, a B team, a C team to choose which one of those three statuses you think fit in that category. That's not the case. So I am. Anybody know what status I'm in? I'm a technician. That's right. I'm not an AGR. So when we go through these things, we have folks like Colonel Yursek, who is not an AGR or a technician. He's a DSG. And so there are opportunities, officer and enlisted, in all statuses to succeed. There are no glass ceilings here. As we go through this, I just want you to have those things in the back of your mind. Chief Maxie and I are going to bounce back and forth today, talking about things, and of course questions are welcome. Hopefully we'll have some time to even take some questions, but we're going to talk about these things. We're going to go through kind of the promotion process, eligibility, look at some local opportunities, and then we will talk a little bit about the SRB, the ACB, and control grade management, and then end up with some advice from both of us for success. So first of all, let's walk through the three tiers on the enlisted side. Everybody pull out your phones if you have them, and I'd like you to take a pic there of that code and bring that up on your phone. As you all are doing that, I'll get out of the way for you to do that. It should be the enlisted blueprint. So these graphics that you see on the next three, so this one and the next two slides are from. Is it working? Yes. Okay. Hallelujah. Technology works. So so I would encourage your homework. You know you're going to get homework today, but your homework is to go back. If you haven't flipped through the enlisted blueprint, then we certainly want you to have the opportunity to do that and see in greater detail all of the different development opportunities, kind of how the U.S. Air Force, the active duty U.S. Air Force, kind of looks at that. So the blueprints for all components, but you always want to be mindful of the subtle differences sometimes between the active and the reserve component. So when you look at the first tier, our E1 through E4 tier, a few things big picture to note is when you are all those ranks, depth is what I am concerned about. That's what I want you to focus on. I want you to show up and get to learn your AFSC and get to learn it the best that you can. Depth matters, and it matters a great deal. The further down in rank you go, the lower rank you go, that more narrow focus on AFSCs do matter. Now, at any rank in those junior enlisted tiers, I want you to focus on CDCs. Get those CDCs done early, and as you move along, we always want to have things that you can control, that you can take care of, done early, done ahead of time before it becomes a constraint for you in your career. We also want to focus on being involved in the base here, being involved at Ellington, the 147th Attack Wing. So councils like Rising 6. I said that right? Rising 6. All right. Yes, Rising 6. So we want to be involved in other things that are happening in the base and not just in our small sections. And then there are also volunteer opportunities. So things like Honor Guard. If you attend, for Chief Maxie and I, we attend most of the ceremonies many of them on the drill weekends, and we always see our great Honor Guard airmen participating, doing great things there, and looking sharp and representing the wing well, and giving the honor to our retiring and promoting members that they deserve. So those are opportunities that are out there, and if you're looking at the junior enlisted levels, then you certainly want to do that. Now, there's things that are of course clear requirements. Say you got to pass your PT test every year. You take the PT test, pass the PT test. There are some time requirements that happen at this level, but they're pretty short. And let's look at the NCO tier. So if you read this on the left-hand side, you can see that we have TIS, time and service. So that means that if you're going to be a staff sergeant, you got to have 4 years time and service, total time in uniform, to be able to promote to that rank. And then you have the next thing, the next requirement is not only time and service, which is the whole thing, but that sliver of that previous rank. So time and grade means you have to be a senior airman for 12 months at least in order to be eligible to promote to staff sergeant. So those are pretty hard and fast rules. And then PME and skill levels, you got your 5 levels, your 7 level, the ALS, those things that you have to do to be eligible for the next rank. So I'm not going to spend too much time belaboring those points, but you'll see that on this slide and the next one. And then there's a nice to have. So as you get to this level, could you do some senior enlisted joint PME? There's a 1 and there's a 2, and those are helpful things to kind of get you out of the game. Also, our Defense Support of Civil Authorities and FEMA courses, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, those things in terms of our DOMOPS missions here, to understand a little bit better how that works is not a bad thing as a nice to have. Professional organizations like NGAD and NAUGUS and First Sergeants Associations and AFA, all those things are certainly nice to haves. Not required. And then additional duties. If you look around the unit, there's always stuff that needs to be done. Have y'all found that too? There's never a shortage of stuff that we have to do. And so when you look to me, when I was a squadron commander and a flight commander, but below that, many years ago, I was always looking for motivated folks that I could give something to and not have to worry about it getting done. So additional duties are a big deal as well. So now let's go to that senior NCO category, where you can see on the left-hand side you've got more stringent time requirements, that you have to meet time and service, time and grade, and then you see the PME. So, by the way, for many of you in the room, you're not senior NCOs. You're maybe be nowhere close to that. But what I want to do is kind of start putting things in your mind so you can think long term. So hey, if you get to the NCO ranks and you go, hey, eventually I'm going to need CCAF or some professional degrees there to make sure that those gates are met, and education, an incredibly important thing in the Air Force, and make sure that's squared away. So could I do that earlier if I have time and space in my schedule? Those are great things. Nice to have SJPME 1 and 2, contemporary basic issues courses, and some FEMA courses that win professional organizations. But we have this level. We also have a lot of national level professional development opportunities to take advantage of. For us here locally, we do that leadership development course. Another one will be in June, where all our local leaders really invest in making sure that our next generation is set up for success. So at this level, we really transition from depth to breadth. What I really begin to become more concerned about is you should, at this point, at the E7 and above level, you should be that 7 level, vested in your job. You should know how to do your job. Now, I really want to see, are you branching out and having a perspective bigger than just your AFSC or your primary job that you have been doing for years? So that breadth thing does matter a great deal. And it's important to note that these are highly competitive ranks. We on our slot, we have limited slots that we can put folks in for these, and so that there is competition that goes along with it. And at this level, when we look at if you're an AGR, control grades become an issue. I have limited E89 control grades, and so sometimes that is restrictive. But when we look at those statuses at the senior NCO rank course, there should be some supervisory duties that are taking place here. Maybe at the NCO level, of course, you're leading and having some supervisory duties as well. But at this point now, you're signing EPRs at this level. And so, can a DSG supervise an AGR? Yes or no? Yes. The answer is absolutely. Military to military, all in the same status. You know, I'm technicians are also DSGs. I don't know if you knew that, but like for Title 32 technicians, which is what I am, I have a technician appraisal that happens over here, and then I have my military appraisal that happens over here. So I supervise and sign a whole lot of AGR reports for lieutenant colonels and colonels and all that sort of thing. And I'm a DSG, because technicians are also DSGs. So it's important to remember that exists. So we have military chain of command, regardless of whether you're DSG or AGR. Now, if you are a technician and you have not your DSG military appraisal, but your technician appraisal over here, technicians must be supervised by full-time employees. And so either you have to be an AGR or a technician to fill out that separate technician appraisal that happens. That chain of command has to go full-time to full-time for those supervisory tasks. So, Chief, why don't you wrap this up for us and hit the next one?
Hey, everybody. So, went over a lot of information there. So, what I just wanted to add was, if you are going for a vacancy, going for an opportunity, you will likely meet me or one of the chiefs on the board. So, I really want you to take away from these three slides those nice to haves. Look at them, there's a ton of them, and find what fits you. When you look at our priorities, when you look at our tactical objectives, find the thing that speaks to you. For me, it was our first tactical objective, taking care of taking care of our citizen airmen. That is the big thing that kind of hit me. So what about that made me what I want to do? So when you look at, if you're applying for a job, if you're applying for one of these vacancies, if you're going on a stat tour, no more are we looking for just the guy who knows how to do their thing, or just the girl who knows how to do their job the best. We want to know, for the leadership positions especially, how you're going to develop that next generation of leaders, how you're going to inspire them, how you're going to create those opportunities. So I had the opportunity to talk to Rising Six yesterday, and a lot of the things we talked about is the jobs that you will have don't exist. So just ask, what do you want to do? Look at those nice to haves. If it doesn't exist, ask us and we will make it happen. So those are the things you want to be looking at as you're looking at what your force management looks like. Don't get stuck into what is on a piece of paper. Just talk to us and we'll create something else on a piece of paper that you can apply for, okay? The next thing we just want to talk about real quick is these promotion vehicles. There's a million different ways to get to that next step, and the one thing I want to focus on is that next step does not always look like a promotion. That next step can also be, hey, you're this rank, but you're going up to the ANG level. Hey, you're going up to the state level. There's a ton of different ways to take advantage of these opportunities. So just very quickly, the tangible ways that we're doing right now, national advertisement, that's where you see it on USA Jobs, TMD, those things that you actually put in a package. Is that one that we kind of try to get away from with the 75 pieces of paper that you have to turn in, and then you can get another one 30 days later and all those things, right? TMAP, of course, we all know about that. TMAP, again, was creating those opportunities. TMAP is not only used for vacancies, it's used for everything. It's your one direct spot to say, hey, this is what I want to do with my life. We have been able to use the TMAP database that you guys have filled out to find so much talent. There's a lot of things that we ask for. Hey, I want somebody who knows about SharePoint. Hey, I want somebody who's big on innovation. These are things that we can't find in your RIP and your bio. We get inundated daily with opportunities from many different levels that I'm able to go into the TMAP database and say, okay, who is from Arizona and has a pink computer and drives a blue car? Those are military things, right? So I've been able to go back, and the more stuff you put into your TMAP profile, the more stuff we have put you in for those different opportunities. Because how many of you have been reached out to from one of us saying, hey, you came up as one of these people and I want you to apply for this. And it's not it's not because of something that you applied for, or maybe in some cases anything that you even thought that you would be eligible for. So the more you put in there from your civilian sector, from your college experience, anything like that is super valuable to us. The Step 2 promotions, this is for E8 and E9. There's 4 of those given out every single year. And this is where we say really focus on those nice to have. This is the best of the best. The Step promotions and stripes for exceptional performers. So you need to have don't come at it with just the bare minimum. You're the bare minimum and then some. And we don't want box checkers. Again, it's just the things that you're passionate about. We have the true opportunity to have access to everything. So make it your career. Create your own adventure. And those Step promotees, the best ones that come in are the ones that have really taken and created something of their own. Those are the ones that stand above. So this year, for instance, we haven't got the announcement. We know that the 147th is the only one that received one of the stripes this year. So that's all becoming what you are and creating it to be your own. And then of course the legacy, hopefully those will be done soon, but those are the ones that if you've been in a position since before TMAC came out, those are the ones that you still put in a package, you still have to board in person, things like that. So just a few different ways that we want to talk to you about how you get to that next level. But again, please not limited to this.
So when we talk about now then the reviewing the records piece, this is critically important. How many of you, when you go on a first date, or maybe some of you many years ago, maybe it was last night for others, or you have that first job interview, do you take a lot of intentional steps to make a good first impression, right? For a number of you in this wing, your first impression may have been a handshake from me very quickly, but that I really get a chance to talk to you very much. Your first impression was a package that I saw on you for promotion or a job opportunity. And I flipped through your record, I looked through your virtual NPF RIP, I looked through all the paperwork you turned in, I looked through your PT scores, and my first impression of you in detail was what I saw on paper. So we want to make sure paper is very, very squared away. And so from now until the end of time, what I want you to do is annually, I want you to systematically review your records. And so that means that going to virtual NPF and flipping through line by line and going, is anything incorrect in here? If it's incorrect, it may be a Where's Waldo adventure to try to figure out how to fix it, but NPF, the FSS can certainly help you with that. EPBs, now everyone should know what their SCOD date is, that static closeout date, so it should be no surprise when your EPR is coming due. Help out your rater, feed him some inputs or her some inputs. And then for declarations, but when you look at NPF, there's another place you should look, and that is in Prada. Everybody been to Prada before? Saw all your personnel records in there. So sometimes there's stuff missing. So you get put in for a decoration. It processes, everything's fine and good. A Air Force Achievement Medal or Accommodation Medal, whatever. Well, if the citation itself is not in Prada, then that's a problem. You want to make sure that your records are totally updated there. She talked about the TMAC worksheet already, updating your bios and making sure your fitness scores end up in there. So I can't tell you how many times we get to a level, officer and enlisted, where we go, hey, we're going to put somebody in for something. And I go to pull records, or I have our FSS pull the records, send it to me, and then magically an EPR or EPB or ERB rather isn't updated. Or maybe decoration isn't in there like it needs to be. And maybe there's a duty title or multiple duty titles that are jacked up on the virtual NPF rep. So you send a signal to me when I do that, and all of you have a record out there, when it is not squared away, you say, well, maybe it doesn't appear that he or she cares that much about his or her career. So, and guess what? I'm not the only one looking at records. At any time, somebody can reach in and pull out your system and has access to it. So it's a continuous thing. And guess what? This is what I do as well. On an annual basis, for a few decades now, I flip through all the records, and there are times, even as a wing commander, vice wing commander, where I found this, or there are some things that were correct once, and now they're not correct for whatever reason, or there are things that didn't get updated the way that they should. When we go to force development opportunities, there are two things that limit opportunities at the more senior ranking levels when you get at those senior NCO ranks. First is an unwillingness to change location. If you're willing to go anywhere at any time, then that opens up more doors. Or if you're unwilling to change statuses, if you're a DSG and don't want to be an AGR technician, or you're an AGR and don't want to be a technician or a DSG, those things do limit us. But I'll tell you that I don't. If folks don't want to change statuses, I certainly understand that and understand why. There's normally good reasons for that. If folks don't want to change locations, we're in the National Guard. That's why most of us joined the National Guard. That's why Dorothy and I rolled over from the active duty Air Force in 2013 to the National Guard, because we wanted more stability for our family and living in one place for longer. And so I certainly respect that. So when you change locations, it creates opportunities in different wings, in different headquarters. And so how do we give you different opportunities if you don't want to move? Well, of course, that's for many of us in our wing. We don't want to move, and I can understand that, like I said. So these local development opportunities are ones where we have places in the wing where we can take you out of your unit and give you a different opportunity with the objective of sending you in a year, 2 years, 3 years, right back to your unit to continue on with your career. So Chief Maxie, talk us through these local force development opportunities.
So the big thing we just want to focus on here is, again, that last bullet over there, that it's not limited to these positions. Think outside the box. Your unit career advisors, anything like that. So think about these positions. This touches every single person in your squadron. We come into the military, we learn our AFSC, right? So when we move into those leadership positions, what are some ways you can get that experience without getting into the position, right? So a first sergeant, obviously, they're part of the command triad. That's an obvious one. But there's also the additional duty first sergeants and now the undershirts, where you can do a shadow program, get that exposure, things like that, if you don't want to all the way step in. Same with the unit training manager, okay? As a chief, what do? We're constantly looking, hey, where are you on your progress? If somebody is behind, it kind of triggers something for us. Hey, what's going on? Is everything okay? You haven't done your CDCs in 3 years, right? That's none of you guys, right? But what it does is it helps us learn those kind of leadership discernments where, okay, this isn't normal behavior, so what's going on with them? Are they okay? Which as leaders, that's our first question, right? Is, hey, are they okay? So same thing, the human resource advisor. That's one of the things, does anybody know what the human resource advisor is? So sad. HR is in here, okay? Raise your hand. All right? Human resource advisor is responsible for the education of our diversity, equity, and inclusion in this space. That's huge, right? So it's a position that she gets to come into and create your own. The certification that she will get is the 4 lenses. And then after that, she comes and meets with your squadron saying, what do you need? And she brings it there. So there's so many opportunities in this wing that you can kind of create your own thing that you're passionate about. So take those little things and kind of make it into opportunities to lead and connect with others. And obviously you've seen a lot of success stories with people rolling through our IG. You get wing exposure, you get to see a lot of things from a bird's eye view. You get in that hallway, you're there when we're screaming at each other. I'm just kidding. Things like that. So just be thinking about all of those extra opportunities that you can do. And again, you're going to hear a trend here. It's not limited to what's on paper. If there's something in the civilian world that you love, there's something in the military and we don't have it here, it just isn't true. We'll make it if it's something that you're passionate about and you can own and run with it. So that's my other caveat, is that if you want to do it, be ready to own it. Bring us the idea and then be ready to own it, okay?
Let's talk specifically about AGR control grades just for a few minutes. So for those in the room who are not AGRs, you might take a look at deciding, all right, I want to apply for an AGR job here one day. Well, let's talk about how we view that and how we kind of look through it. So first of all, when we look at the AGR control grades, you can see we have limits. So we have 8 that our wing is allocated. We have some discretion in terms of what we're going to do. And then we have 20 on the E8 side, and we manage these via the full-time manning board that we have twice a year that's chaired by me, and the group commanders attend and all that sort of thing. So let's talk about a few different things that I use to decide where the control grades are going to go. And it's a fluid thing, but based on mission needs and requirements and different things going on around the wing. But first, there are some positions that just have priority to have an AGR control grade. So Chief Maxie's position, the wing command chief, is one of those where that's an obvious one where that should probably, if there's a rack and stack of who gets E9 control grades, that should probably be the first one. Right? And so there are other positions, E8s and E9s, that end up having priority because of the function that position does, or the visibility that function gets, and whatnot. The other thing that I take into account in those decisions that I make about where to allocate control grades are a little bit of fair sharing. I try to look across the entire wing, ops group, medical, the wing staff, and then the MSG and all the MSG squadrons, and try to make sure, for me, what's important is for our AGRs that are E7s, that they're E6s, E7s, that there is a path for them to get to chief. I mean, so sometimes that path may be a little bit of choose your own adventure, but I want there to be force management, career development for everyone down in each squadron. That's AGR opportunities, technician opportunities, DSG opportunities for all. So we are. So a little bit of that fair sharing takes place as I look where the E8 and E9 control grades are across the board. And then finally, I take into account members' numbers. So sometimes you have a member that has a TAFMS number or a stat service number, or there's a split there that can be problematic for us from a force management perspective. So I know this is hard to see, so let me just kind of read off what's here. I have E9 here, and these are all of, there's no names here, but these are all the 8 people and their numbers that are sitting in our E9 control grades right now. So this first one here, 17 years, 10 months, and they have 32 years of SAT service. So what's the magic number here? You got to get to 20 years, right? So when you're close, most of the time it's going to be okay. Over here, you could be a little further away from that 20 on this side without having too big a split on this side. And you can see numbers anywhere from 10 all the way up to folks in their 20s here. So we have one odd one out here, this chief position. This poor person has 4 years of TAFMS. They're an AGR, they're a chief, and they have 22 years of SAT service. So what's the deal with that? That's not normally someone that we would let into the AGR program. But this resource is actually Chief Maxie. There we go. But she is not a career AGR. We are using that as a one-time occasional tour for the command chief slot. So she's been all different statuses throughout her career, mostly a DSG and a technician. And so this opportunity is she'll do this tour, and then she will, upon the completion of the tour, she will be out of the program. So there's no intent to get her up to 20 years. But what happens here when we look at all these numbers is if you're a career status AGR, meaning that we own you until 20, then if I'm going to put you in a senior master sergeant slot and I got to buy you for 10 years as a senior master sergeant, then that's something that we have to really closely look at so we don't mess up our force management plan and gum up the system for others to make sure that they have the opportunities to hold those for 3, 4, 5 years and not 10 years kind of thing. So let's talk about the Selective Retention Review Board, which is for everybody, no matter what status you're in. And then the ACB, the AGR Continuation Board. These have been things that we have had issues or had robust discussions on over the past few years. I think we had some course corrections we had to do, and so as we move into the next year, we should have smaller amounts of course corrections that we need to make because we've kind of stabilized the system in accordance with the TAG and ATAG's wishes. So when we look at an SRB, everybody who has more than 20 years of satisfactory service, not TAFMS, but that total active federal military service, but just your SAT service years, then you meet this board. And then we run this list to decide whether or not we're going to actually have to fill out a form on you when you meet the board because your numbers are not very high. So if you're way high on SAT service, you get less points. If you're way high on time and grade, you get less points. If you're way high on the time you spend in your current position, you get less points. If you don't have your education, your degree, your PME done, depending on what level you are, you get less points. If you are blocking or not blocking to someone, you get less points. And so all that gonculates to say this puts you at higher risk. And sometimes if we say, hey, it would be great for you to move over to a different job because you've been in this job for 5 or 6 years, then that's us investing in you and saying, all right, we're trying to create opportunities for you. So the SRB you're not at higher risk for that. So what are some things that you can control here? Of course, you can't control your education, you can't control your PME, and that does matter. Now let's talk about the ACB very quickly for the E8 and E9 levels. This is the chart that state headquarters gives us, so you can see the recommended to put somebody in career status profile here. You can see E6 at 4 years, E7 at 12 years, E8 at 14 years, E9 at 16 years. So if you're outside that profile by much, then it doesn't mean that we are not going to make you an AGR or consider you for that career status instead of a one-time occasional tour. But it does mean I'm going to have to look at it more closely to make sure there is a plan to get you there if we put you into the AGR system. But we are, and then so that's on the let you into the system side, and then over here when we have the list of 21 to 20 to 22 years, depending on where you're at, E7 to E9. If there is no projection for advancement in responsibility, advancement in grade, then that's where we begin to take a close look at you. But we are not a 20 and out force on the AGR side. So that means that if there are opportunities that await you or that we see you competitive for, then we're not going to ACB. I'm not going to recommend to the board that you be ACB. A great example of that is General Barker. Everybody remember General Barker? He is congratulations to him. He is moving on to Strategic Command into a 2-star slot here in the next month or two, so we're excited for him. But he has about 27 years of TAFM. So when he was here, as Vice Wing Commander and a Wing Commander, man, he was way over that 20-year mark. But the senior leaders still had plans for him, so he kept moving on because of his projected future advancement. Chief, why don't you cover some myths for us about these two boards?
So a couple things that we get questions about are really those SRB, ACB kind of hey must-haves. And the big word that we really want to focus on those last 2 slides is that it is a recommendation. Those numbers are not hard numbers. The thing is, that's what we talk about, those nice-to-haves. Justify that while you're holding those critical positions, hey, this is what I bring to the table, this is how the military is going to benefit from me. So we want to make sure that for SRB, ACB, we've heard a lot, hey, you just want box checkers. That's not the case. We don't want somebody who's just going to do the job and do the job. We want the best developed person, the one who's continuing that development throughout our airmen and things like that, okay? Like we said, there's not a hard line. When you see like, hey, here's the criteria to get into the AGR program, here's the criteria for like what the SRB numbers and points look like. Again, we have so many examples, myself included, and a million other of your key leaders in this room that have been put into the program and then not hit any of these things, but still get that continuation, okay? So again, this is not a way to get you out. SRP and ACB is not a punitive process. It is truly a force management function. So again, that's why you are in charge of your own career. Those control your controllables. Make sure that development that you can get to, make sure that you're visible, you're out, you get outside of your AFSC, you get outside of your office so that when a paper goes in front of a board that does not know you as a person, there is just like a, oh, dang, how can we say no because this person is doing so much for our airline, And then, let me say, TMAP is completely different from SRB and ACB. TMAP is, again, a talent management tool. It's a vacancy we're using for vacancies. We're truly using it to identify the talent that we haven't been able to in military systems. So there's been a lot of confusion that because of TMAP, I'm getting SRB completely separate, So we just want to make sure that we put a huge separation between the two. TMAP is creating opportunities. SRB, ACB is strictly force management. And again, the more you can tell us about your career, because this is something that is a recommendation, the wing goes up and then there's a board at state that says, hey, this person on this piece of paper, I don't get to sit in front of it, you don't get to sit in front and say, hey, here's all the things I didn't get to put on the paper, right? So just make sure that all that stuff is in your record. So we already talked about it is a force management tool. And it is important for E6 and below. So all of these things that right now you're kind of seeing your supervisors go through this. Take advantage of it right now. At any rank that you're at, take advantage of those opportunities. Take advantage of learning what you can do. The more you have like a diverse background, even if you never leave your AFSC, you can get diversity into your career so that you can say, hey, this person has done so many things and is such a benefit. And we have a few examples of that, even within the career field. EOD and ASOS, those are two that are very, very specific. It's hard to get outside of that AFSC because it's really hard. But what they do in their communities is they are involved at the ANG level. They're involved with their other kind of sister units. EIS is another one. They get outside into their community. So it's not something that we have to, you don't have to go to, it's not a subscribe, you must be part of NGAT, you must be part of this. It's really kind of one of those things that you're saying, hey, I bring so much to the table. I've done innovation things for my entire community, impacted the entire Air National Guard, things like that, okay? And then again, what these do is just, these are competitive positions. There is no next person. It just doesn't exist. So make sure that when you're meeting this board, that you say, hey, here's everything that I'm going to bring to the table, not just me. So when we're looking at those papers, it's just like, hey, here's who I am, here's how I'm going to get out of the way, here's how I'm going to make sure that I'm willing to change statuses, I'm willing to change AFSCs, I'm willing to make sure that I don't stay stagnant, so that those that I have the opportunity to lead in development have a path and have a way forward. Does that make a little bit of sense?
Yeah, so I'll add here that I read every word of every SRRB and ACB form for those that I know. We have many that are more junior, and this does not impact you, but kind of shows you where you're going to go down the road. And I spend hours and hours and hours trying to make the best decisions for force management for our wing. Because if you're more junior in here, I've seen many times in the Guard where the more junior ranking folks in the pipeline get a little frustrated to the point where like, I wish that dude would leave. Whether he retires or dies, I don't care which one it is. I just want to leave. You know what I'm saying? No, maybe someone has felt that way, but not any of us. So we want to create opportunities because it keeps the organization healthy, and for those who are more junior, it allows you to have opportunities, continuous opportunities to progress. But at the same time, I take into account a lot of different factors and spend a lot of different time reading. So if you want to talk to me, if you want to have a one-on-one meeting with the wing commander, then you had it when you write that form. When you write your comments in that form, you know that I'm going to read every single word of it. And I'm probably going to read it a few different times if it's a tough decision. So we're going to close with a couple different words of advice, and then we'll get a chance to ask questions. Chief, you go first, and I'll go second.
So again, just looking at, we've gone through a lot of tangible things. We're going to jump into some of those intangible things. So when you're looking at force management, what a big advice we can give you is just say yes. If somebody's coming to you with an opportunity, say yes. Put your package in, go for the board. If you have to say no later, you know, if it doesn't work out for your family situation, that's fine. But if somebody's coming to you and you can't really see the path, that's okay, because it might not be there yet. It might be being created for you, okay? So don't feel restricted by that. That whole we've talked, we really hit the ground running on getting involved. Can't say that enough. I'm not going to harp on that too much, but really just that visibility, seeing your face again. So when I meet you at a board, I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember them because she was the NGAT president, she was the ASA president, and she was the Rising Six president, and all the things. And she volunteers at everything. I don't know that person's name just yet, but I always see them up there behind the scenes, moving chairs, things like that. You never know who's watching. Somebody is always watching. You're always interviewing for that next position, okay? Minimum education. We just can't help you with that. Don't come anywhere without your PME done, your CCAF, all of those minimum requirements. You and you alone are in control of the timeline. You know what they are. Just do them, get them done with, don't wait, okay? Same thing with your PT. I know that's not up there, but you know when you're due. Just don't be outdated. And if you do have to go outdated, get that profile. Like if it's because of a medical reason, don't say a profile is pending, because it's not. You're either due or you have to go out. Those are the two options you have. Civilian education is super important in the Guard. We have the opportunity to have access to that, and a lot of cross things are happening. Just like yesterday in Rising Six, there was a person from ASOS asked about some medical thing that was completely over my head. I said, ooh, I have to go talk to Chief Love about that. And today, Colonel Brennan is signing him up for some sort of huge training that costs money and spending their investment on him. So again, you just have to ask the question, and we'll get you there, okay? And alignment, always, like we said before. know what you are passionate about and align that with our priorities, right? Do it the other way around. Priorities are just not something you should memorize just for a board, but think about what they mean to you and who you are as a person, okay?
All right. So before we get into the slide part here, I realize that first, hopefully, as we wrap up here, that you're going to go back to your units today, and this is not our entire wing. So I would ask, if you thought this was valuable, to encourage your fellow airmen to attend one of the other briefs, because we want them to expose maximum exposure to everybody on the information that we're giving here today. Hopefully all of you wanted to be here. And so if you wanted to be here and you're invested and interested in your career and all those sorts of things, that's a category of people that we're excited to talk to. But there's a couple of categories where if you're in a place where maybe you're a little bit on the fence, you're like, I don't know how much of this stuff is going to apply to me or not, then what I want you to be able to do is realize that, especially if you're more junior or younger, that man, plans change. How many of you 10 years ago thought you were going to be where you are today? Anybody? Not me. I'm raising my hand to get you to raise your hand. No one raised their hand, right? So 10 years ago today, 20 years ago today, Dorothy and I, as a family and with our children, we had no idea that we were going to be standing right here in Houston 10 years later. 20 years ago, I had no idea I was going to be in the Air National Guard, best kept secret in the world. I'm super excited to jump over the Guard 10 years ago. So when you look at, you don't know whether or not you want to be a chief, or you don't know whether you want to have those first sergeant opportunities, whatever those things are for later. I've seen many different times as an old guy where folks decide, yeah, they're not interested, and then all of a sudden one day they wake up and they go, yeah, I think I'm interested in doing that thing. I'm like, do that. You should have done this, and this 5 years ago, but you didn't. So now, where your opportunities 5 years ago, if you would have been planning and kind of listening, you could have had this level of opportunity, this many different options. Now, it's like this, or maybe you're past the point. So that I would keep your options open, even if you're not quite sure that you want to do these things, 10, 15 years later, that all of us old people here are doing right now. Then there's the final category of folks that may be in the room today, or you may talk to when you go back to your unit, and that's the folks that realize that the die is cast. They're toward the end. They're E7, E8, E9, wherever, and they realize that they're close to retirement. But what should the senior NCOs be doing? What do I expect you to do? I expect you to be investing in, mentoring, and pouring into the next generation. And so, as we look at the information here, there's use for our senior NCOs to just have a clear and superior understanding of what's going on, so you can give the best advice to the NCOs and the airmen. Let me give you some of my expectations as your wing commander. First and foremost, we talked about a lot of different things in this briefing about extra things you should be doing, or might be good to do. Extra things here, different things for professional organizations over here, all this sort of thing. And yes, but don't miss the first bullet on the slide. Current performance indicates future potential. So your primary key to success, your primary method, your primary avenue to bigger and better things is to do the best job in the job that you're in right now. Don't worry about the job 3 jobs from now. Worry about this job. If you come talk to me about the job 3 jobs from now and you suck at this job, I'm not going to give you the job 3 jobs from now, right? That's how that works. So I want you to understand that as we are moving forward here, focus on your primary job and do the best you can at your primary job. Make it better. Don't leave things for your replacement to come in and fix after you leave because you're anxious to get to that next job. make sure that things are squared away in your circle of trust, in the things that you oversee, and that you get to have the opportunity to take care of. I can't tell you how much it aggravates me when you are the lagging indicator in your career versus the leading indicator in your career, meaning that I want to see that PME is done by the time you hit that time in service and time in grade milestone. So for E6 and up, that's 24 months. So I want to see within the first 2 years that your next thing is knocked out, so that all you're doing is waiting on time. If you get that in reverse, where, like, man, we need to make, the seniors, Master Sergeant Smith, or Jones, a chief, and they go, well, their stuff isn't done. Or we need to make you an E7 or an E8. And now I'm waiting on you. Know that I'm not going to wait very long. Make sense? I'll move on to somebody else who has done the stuff they need to do and is ready, because that's why we're having education here. Because you can know early on what is expected. Now, for the more senior ranking folks, especially when you get to the senior NCO level, at SEL level, there are times where I need somebody somewhere else to do something else that you may not be super comfortable with. And if asked, my expectation is that you will say yes when asked. And so there's obviously life circumstances and career implications to when you move somewhere else, but I want everybody to have an open mind about moving somewhere else to do something that the wing needs to be done if we assess that you're the right leader to do it. So I'll never forget, I was at state headquarters, 5, 6 years ago, and one of the generals drove by at Camp Mayberry on a golf cart and picked me up. I was like the state director of public affairs. And he said, we're going to go on a golf cart ride. I'm like, well, that's probably not good. I'm probably going to get jacked up or something. So I go jump in the golf cart. Sure, I'm here. I'm excited. So then we're riding along the golf cart. It's like, hey, I need you to be like the money integrator for the state headquarters, the J8. I was like, oh, I'll qualify for that job, sir. They're like, well, you'll be fine. It'll be good. But we need you to do this. We need you to take this job. I'm like, okay. I guess that's what I'm doing next. So, and then that worked out well. So if somebody's asking to do something, it's because that we see collectively as a leadership team, all the way down, all my leadership teams down at the squadron level, us collectively, if we're asking you to do something, it's because we see potential and there's a need that you as a leader can fill. So bear that in mind for the young guys. For 10 years now, somebody asks you to do something that may be a little outside your comfort zone. If you're for the more senior ranking people in the room, I need your help in identifying those bright E6s, E7s that are ready to move to the next level, so we can be tracking them more closely, create more opportunities for them. And for AGRs, you saw the TAFMs in SAT service. You always want to be mindful of that and realize opportunities that make you great or ways that may limit you, and so it has to be managed accordingly. Especially if you have a lower amount of TAFMs and you're more senior ranking and you're interested in having get into that 20-year mark. Now, I also would expect my senior NCOs to have tough force management conversations. So sometimes you got to sit down and you got to go, hey, your TAFMs is low, your SAT service is high, and this is kind of where you're at. So those tough conversations are needed, because that's what leaders and supervisors have to do. And then, more importantly, we want you to follow up with intentional development all the way down the chain, because that's what your wing leadership team is continuously focused on. Now, finally, I want you to understand that strategic patience is a virtue. In 2013, I had been at transition from the active duty Air Force. I was a seasoned major, so about ready to pin on lieutenant colonel in time and grade, and my stuff was done. And 3 or 4 months into it, I was a brand new technician. I was a major, and then I militarily, I was not a commander yet, and so I called a wing commander that I had known from my days at the Pentagon. And I was just really down and frustrated because it looked like there was no place to go. There were no opportunities. And he was a great guy from Mississippi, had a big Southern drawl accent. So he listened to me, him and Hall, vent, you know, all that sort of thing. I mean, probably for 5 minutes. Then he's like, oh, okay. He said, TD, that's my call sign, TD. He said, TD, so I tell you what, why not you call me back in 2 years and let's have the conversation then. And then he hung up the phone. I'm like, super unhelpful, super unhelpful. Well, we did end up talking a little bit more, but I thought, man, that's the worst advice ever. But he didn't give me a lot until I got to the fall of 2013. Fast forward 2 years to the fall of 2015. And what he was saying was strategic patience is a virtue. Do the best you can. Keep after it. And then all of a sudden, especially in the National Guard, opportunities will unexpectedly just find you. You just find it. And so promotion on the technician side and on the military side occurred 2 years later. I was a sitting squadron commander up at Fort Worth in maintenance. And 2 years later, a very unexpected opportunity because I wasn't a previously qualified maintenance officer. And so his worst advice ever that I thought was actually the best advice in what I needed to hear. So I'll pass that on to you as we close today before we take a few questions and say, sometimes it's just staying after it, keeping moving forward, and then you wait another couple of years and then unexpected opportunities just might pop up in very, very surprising ways.